Welcome to another episode of Chad's Chat. Join Chad Chilius and me, Dax Castro, where each week we wax poetic about document accessibility topics, tips, and the struggle of remediation and compliance. So sit back, grab your favorite mug of whatever, and let's get started.
Welcome, everyone. Today's podcast is sponsored by Recosoft, makers of PDF to ID, Decks MoveIn, and workflow automation tools for the Creative Cloud platform. My name is Chad Chilius. I'm an Adobe certified instructor, as well as Director of Training Solutions and Principal at Chax Training and Consulting.
And my name is Dax Castro. I'm Director of Media Productions here at Chax Training Consulting. And Chad and I are both certified as Accessible Document Specialists. If you'd like your certification for either the Accessible Document Specialist or Web Accessibility Specialist, head on over to accessibilityassociation.org/certifications and find out more.
I noticed this week we had a couple of people announce on the Facebook group that they passed their ADS exam. And I thought that was really cool. Yeah, it's really cool to see people, pursuing that.
They always come to us on the side and they're like, hey, how can I study harder? What can you tell me? I'm like, can't tell you anything.
Yeah.
And then usually what ends up happening is, a lot of people just have imposter syndrome. They really feel like even though they've been in this industry a long time, that they aren't sure if they really know it. And it's one of the things about the ADS test is that when you pass that, you should put that imposter syndrome away, put it in your back pocket. You earned your chops. So, it's not as scary as it seems. If you've been doing accessibility remediation for a couple of years, even a year and a half, you really have a good chance of passing that test. So, keep up the good fight out there, guys.
Yeah, you're right, Dax. I mean, I've had a lot of people come up to me and they're like, what can I do to pass the exam? And I'm like, well, I can't tell you specifics, right? But what I can tell you is just do the work.
Right.
Do the work, remediate documents, make documents accessible. Yep. And that's the best thing you could do to study for that exam. The more knowledge you have, the better your chances. So very good. Awesome. Well, we're excited today. We have a special guest on the podcast. This is your second time, Paul. Paul Chadha from Recosoft is joining us today to talk about what he does over at Recosoft and some of the new products that he has that kind of impact us from an accessibility standpoint. How you doing, Paul?
Great, Chad. How are you?
Good.
And how are you, Dax?
I'm doing well. We are hot as can be here. Now you're in Japan and I hear it's hot over there too, right?
Yeah, it's really hot here. It's so hot, it's burning in my house.
Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you. I've actually used this tool. So one of the struggles I think a lot of us deal with right now with PowerPoints is the way PowerPoint exports files. And whenever you do a PowerPoint, there's always a ton of cleanup for people when they're like, hey, can I get your slide deck, Dax? And I'm like, no, because I don't want to have to spend 4 hours remediating the slide deck. And I usually have 80 slides in my deck, and it's always everything's buried inside a section tag, inside a figure tag, and improperly nested elements, all these things to the point where Chad and I have started building our decks inside InDesign because we have more control and the visual is the same, but the output as a PDF is much more accessible, but your product kind of helps solve that problem, right?
Yes. So our product, Decks MoveIn, it's a plugin for InDesign, and it serves a very simple purpose. It's to be able to import PowerPoint documents into InDesign. So it'll just convert the entire PowerPoint document into an InDesign document with every slide in the PowerPoint becoming a page in the resulting InDesign document. And we go so much so that all of your, the PowerPoint themes are converted to parent/master pages in InDesign.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. And then you have control over styles, right? Because then at that point you can assign styles to the different slides and then really have that much more granular control over the content, right?
Yeah, that's correct. What Decks MoveIn does is that it'll automatically create character and paragraph styles for you. So you don't have to rebuild them from scratch. It'll pick up all of the common elements that have been applied and made in the original PowerPoint slide or presentation, and it'll create the resulting InDesign style sheet, again, automatically.
I know that at a previous Creative Pro week, Nolan Hames did a session on kind of a hack for being able to create heading level 1, heading level 2, heading level 3s inside a PowerPoint, but it was visual only. He leveraged bullets and some negative offsets and some things. But this way, with the Decks plugin, you're able to actually do it and actually use more than one, just heading level 1 or heading level 2. So that's really great.
Yeah, exactly. Again, we're here to automate your workflow. So no copy paste, no type again. That's the whole point. We're trying to make sure that you're the designer, right? You should be spending your time designing or being creative. That's your job. Our job is to make sure that you get from point A to point B as fast as possible, so you can be servicing your clients, doing other stuff, make more money at the same time.
Right.
Yes. Well, that's one of the challenges we run into with PowerPoint, because PowerPoint really only gives you the ability to assign H1 and H2 to objects, right?
Based on the title, right? It's only the title.
Yeah, it's all based on the slide master, right? I mean, that's really where the connection is made. But with Decks MoveIn, I think what you're saying, Paul, is like you kind of identify unique formatting attributes in the text, and from that you'll create a style. You'll see that on a certain page, oh, this text is 16-point bold, we're going to make a paragraph style out of it. And the cool thing about that is that now, because it's converted to InDesign, I could say, oh, well, I couldn't do this in PowerPoint, but now that it's in InDesign, I'm going to make that an H3. Normally when we do that work, you're kind of relegated to fixing it in the PDF file, right? If you're like, oh, this should be an H3, you really have to fix it in the PDF. That's the only place you can really do it. But this product is a really cool solution to that problem and to a limitation of PowerPoint.
Exactly. Again, workflow automation is what we believe in. So
well, one of the things that I really like is the fact that in PowerPoint, when you have a text box where you've got a piece of text in a box that has a background color, blue box, white text, right? And you try to export that PowerPoint file, what you end up with is, from an accessibility standpoint, is a figure with a paragraph tag nested inside of it, which is stupid. And it makes me want to drive down to San Jose and beat on the doors of Microsoft and tell them, fix this. Yeah. Which is one of the main reasons why we love InDesign so much, because when you do that same thing in InDesign, then it just artifacts the box and exports the text the way it's supposed to. And that's one of the great things about using your plugin, the Decks MoveIn plugin, is it allows us to basically not have to deal with any of the bugs, I guess you might say, that are in PowerPoint, and allow us to just kind of do the thing we want to do, which is design and structure the content correctly. And, you're talking about identifying formats. If you keep your font size is consistent throughout your slides, your plugin is going to work amazing, because it's going to, if you have your title at, 24 point, and then you have a heading above your first bullet list that's at 16 point, and then you've got a subheading in there below that that's at 14 point, and you're consistent on every slide, then you'll have all your styles all mapped out across the board without really having to do much else.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep. And even worst case, you could do some creative cleanup in InDesign after the fact.
For sure.
One of the things I love about InDesign is when you delete a paragraph style, it asks you what you want to replace it with.
Right.
So I mean, it's one of the frustrating things about PowerPoint is that we don't have styles in PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Right. So oftentimes, and I got to believe, Paul, that your plugin, if I have a heading that's 16-point bold, and then another instance of that heading and it's 15.5-point bold, you're going to make 2 paragraph styles out of it. And you should, right? I mean, and rightly so. I mean,
exactly.
Because they in
it's
reality,
they're
different. Yeah.
They're different.
It's not smart enough to know that, oh, he really wanted this to be the same. You know what I mean? Like, you can't make assumptions like that. And that's what makes it really tricky. But with your plugin and the fact that we're now in InDesign, if I have 5 of those headings, I can just delete all of them and just tell it, no, make it this one, and just really streamline your document quite a bit.
That's the beauty about InDesign.
Well, and what we're talking about really here is being consistent, right? Yeah. And that's part of the web content accessibility guideline. It's having a consistent user experience. And if the designer developer doesn't use a consistent font, I mean, come on, we've all been given PowerPoint files where 3 slides were from this presentation and 2 slides were from that presentation, and they're all mixed together, and everybody decides they want to use different font sizes, right? It's not the fault necessarily of the designer, but sometimes those things get missed. And being able to leverage Decks MoveIn and InDesign, you're able to do all that cleanup relatively easily. And that's just a pretty cool place to be in. So, yeah.
For sure. I've been using PDF.ID as well as Decks MoveIn because, there's just times when I don't want to do all of that work manually. You know what I mean? It's a lot of work to rebuild a document, so, your products just really save me a ton of time and allow me to just kind of focus on, what I'm being hired to do or, what my client wants me to do. And that's a really great thing.
Well, we were talking about this earlier, and Paul, maybe you can talk about this, is that, most people, I mean, PowerPoint started out as a presentation software. You're standing up in the front of a room, you're giving a presentation on screen. There's no need for headings, right? I mean, you need something visual on screen, but now we've kind of morphed it into this web pager or document editor and all these different things. But your plugin isn't just for PowerPoint itself, but Keynote and Google Slides, and talk to us about that a bit more.
Yeah, so the great thing about the Decks MoveIn plugin is because it takes in PowerPoint files into InDesign. So your Google Slides documents and your Keynote documents can now be converted to InDesign or seamlessly brought into InDesign, because both Keynote and Google Slides, they export to the PowerPoint format. And once it's in PowerPoint format, just use Decks MoveIn and boom, you've got all your Keynote data, you've got your Google Slides data in InDesign, and just the way you want it to be.
Well, and from an accessibility standpoint, there's a lot of good benefits as well, right?
Exactly, because we read all the accessibility tags and we map it to all of the InDesign accessibility tags. We'll create all of the, the style sheet information that's required, and we'll tag it. We'll actually make a separate tag that says, hey, by the way, this is an accessibility tag, or this paragraph has an accessibility style, or that's the whole point about the way we structure things. So it's easily identifiable, whatever you're trying to do.
That's really great. I mean, a lot of people struggle at making InDesign accessible. I mean, making both InDesign and PowerPoint accessible, and, being able to start with a base of, okay, my PowerPoint has some accessibility built in. I want to port that over to InDesign and not have to start from scratch. I mean, that's definitely a time saver for sure. So,
well, and I got to say, Mac users love Keynote. Because it really is a really cool product. They typically like it because of the cool animations that it offers. And that doesn't really help us from the accessibility side. But my point of bringing this up is that Mac users love to use Keynote. And Keynote cannot make an accessible PDF file. And so when I have clients who say, "Hey, can you make my Keynote file accessible?" Right? The answer is, sure, I can make a PDF and tag it manually,
right.
but you're really going to pay a lot of money to have this done,
Money.
So yeah. Money, time, energy, all of the above, right? So with your plugin, we could say, okay, fine. Let's save our Keynote file to PowerPoint and then use Decks MoveIn to convert it to InDesign. And then from there, I have something to work with, right? I have some ways that I can make an accessible PDF file out of that, which is really cool solution in my opinion.
I was going to say, when you try to take something, for example, a lot of people try to copy paste or they'll try to do things manually. You miss out on all the little details. You just miss out a lot. And that's where we come in, right? We're trying to make things automatic for you so you don't miss out on the details at all.
Yeah, and that's phenomenal. And one of the things I wanted to point out about the work you do, Paul, I recently wrote an article for Creative Pro Magazine on a product called Guide. And Guide basically allows you to make guides simpler, right? And I know everybody's like, oh my gosh, guides are so easy. Why would you need a special product? Well, with Guide, I can click a button and it puts a guide dead center in my document vertically. Click another button, it puts it dead center horizontally. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because one of the things that I loved about Guide was the responsiveness of development, right? Like when I first tried the product, one of the things that stood out to me was when I hovered over the buttons, there was no tooltip. I had no idea what those buttons were there for. And within like 2 days, he wrote an update and sent it to me that had tooltips added. And the reason that I'm bringing this up, the connection that I'm making here, there is a connection, by the way. The reason I bring that up is because your company is very nimble, in my opinion, and you have already released a bunch of updates for Decks MoveIn that have squashed a bunch of bugs, added new features, and Dax and I, I'm gonna keep it rated G here, but we get frustrated with some of the companies that we work with because the speed at which they move and make fixes and changes is at a snail's pace. But because you're so nimble, you're releasing updates on these products very regularly.
Yeah, that's right. We actually had, since its release in December last year, we probably had about 4 updates to Decks MoveIn. We had like a February update, actually a January update, then we had a March update or mid-March update, and then we had an April, and then we had a May update. So we were very, very, we sort of scheduled everything. We're like, oh, this is the update, we're on this update, we're on this update we're going to do. And we received a lot of feedback in generating those updates, and we tried to make sure that whatever we could do within that timeline, we would do it, whatever changes people wanted. And it's gone smoothly. And so one of the things we do is we always interact with the customers or end users and ensure that whatever feedback they give us, we try our best to roll it in as fast as possible.
I'm looking on the website here and you go to recosoft.com. I'm looking at the Decks MoveIn plugin description. And one of the things it says in here is PowerPoint's created from Figma, Google Slides, and Canva. So interesting. And of course, Apple Keynote. But Canva is an interesting one that we've covered on this podcast a few times because their ability to create accessibility in their resulting PDFs is, for lack of a better word, in its infancy. and maybe they're trying. In fact, one of my LinkedIn friends just got hired as the accessibility lead tech for Canva. So I'm excited that they'll be pushing the envelope of not having 500 divs nested inside each other. But this gives people hope for people who have teams that are designing in Canva. They can kind of round trip or, end around through avenues and get it from Canva to InDesign, right?
Yep, exactly. That's the whole point. If you followed it, I mean, you guys know us from the last 15 years probably.
Right. Yeah.
We've been in the the InDesign or Creative Cloud automation business since 15, 16 years now, and our history has always been, hey, we got to make things work smoothly. That's the whole point. We got to remove pain wherever we can remove pain, and that's the point. So what we're trying to do here is make it seamless, make it easy. That's all. Just one click for you guys.
Yeah. And I got to say, you do it well. You do it really well. It's like I said, I've been working on projects, and it has really saved me a ton of time, a lot of effort, and I really, they're fantastic. I can't say enough about it.
Should we bill you by the hour?
Yeah, you should.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to try a Canva document with Decks MoveIn and see how it goes, because it's everybody right now. It's the word on the tip of their tongue. Everybody wants to design in Canva, and it's just when they come back to us and say, "Hey, we need to make this accessible now," my answer is, good luck. You might as well. I mean, you have a better chance using auto tag in Acrobat than you do natively expecting a Canva document to be accessible. So,
Well, and I mean, to be fair, I mean, this product is going to help like you and me, Dax, probably more than like the end user, because they're probably using Canva because they don't want to have to learn InDesign. Right. You know what I mean? And so we could say, well, Canva can't make an accessible PDF, but you can export to InDesign, and then they're going to be like, their brain is going to explode. You know what I mean? So, but still, you know what I mean? If you have the know-how, I'm sure there are plenty of other people out there in our a similar situation that we're in, where they can say, oh, okay, you did this in Canva. Well, I can't exactly make that accessible, but I do have a solution and I can help you. So that's a really good place to be in.
Awesome.
So yeah, we talked about your updates. We talked about Google Slides. I mean, I think that's fantastic too, because before your product, the only way, did Grackle Docs work with Google Slides, Dax? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember.
I know it worked with Google Docs and Google Sheets, but I can't remember if it worked with Google Slides. So again, there's plenty of companies out there who are using that platform to create their presentations.
Well, speaking of platforms, Chad, it's worth noting that Decks MoveIn is both Mac and PC, right? And so it's really nice that they're both it's cross-platform, and there's a trial on the website, so you can go and download the trial. And that's pretty cool. Test it out, see if it's what you think you want, and which we know it will be. I mean, it's definitely saved us some time for sure. But that's Recosoft.com, and then if you just click on the Decks MoveIn program, I mean, there's a lot of products on here. InDesign to Office, PDF to InDesign, InDesign to PowerPoint. I mean, there's just a whole PDF to Office Professional. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on here. If you're getting a lot of different formats from different clients and you're having to play the format switching game, I mean, there's just a ton of answers here. So
awesome.
We're here to make sure to make life, again, easy for you guys.
Yep.
Let me just say a little about the whole PowerPoint to InDesign tool thing, or Decks MoveIn plugin. Is just like how PDF became sort of a universal standard, right? As a medium of file exchange, I would say file exchange is how it's evolved into, more than just an archive format where you just send for printing or archiving. PowerPoint has become a format where every company, I wouldn't say every company, but major companies do support as a format of output. So It's only logical to present a seamless solution to go from PowerPoint to InDesign.
Right.
So that you as the designer, right, can accept documents seamlessly at the end. We're just opening up, avenues for everybody.
It's about giving people options, right? And as solution providers, the more options we have, the easier it is to troubleshoot problem documents from clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Awesome.
All right, Paul. Well, listen, I mean, it's been great having you on. I really appreciate you coming on and telling us about the Decks MoveIn plugin, and hopefully our listeners have gotten a little bit of information about that and have been able to find some solutions for problems that they've been having as well. I really do think that they would have. So we want to thank you for being on. Thank you for being our sponsor this week.
Yeah,
we really
absolutely.
appreciate that.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning in on today's podcast. Once again, we want to thank Recosoft, makers of PDF ID, Decks MoveIn, and workflow automation tools for the Creative Cloud platform, for being the sponsor on today's podcast. My name is Chad Chilius.
And my name is Dax Castro, where each week we unravel accessibility for you.
Thanks, guys.